Hi, I'm John Nixon. I'm going to show you how to set up and use two different templates for making through dovetail joints from MLCS Woodworking. One template produces 3/4 inch wide tails, 1 1/8 on center, and is suitable for making smaller items like jewelry boxes, humidors, or drawers. The other template produces 1 inch wide tails, 2 inches on center, and is nice for larger scale work like blanket chests or cabinets. I'll detail the one-time setup procedure for these templates and then show you how easy it is to get great-looking dovetails from this system. Before we begin, let me show you the components.
As mentioned, we'll be using two different templates, one for the smaller dovetails and the other for the larger. We'll be using a 14-degree 3/4 inch dovetail bit as well as a 3/8 inch straight bit. We also have a guide bushing with a 5/8 inch outside diameter that fits the base of the router. This guide bushing is what guides the router through the fingers of the template. The first step is to make the mounting block for the template. The mounting block is 2 7/8 inches wide, 4 inches tall, and 18 inches long. I made mine by laminating 3 pieces of wood that were just under 1 inch thick. The angled fingers of the smaller template need to overhang the mounting block by 3/4 of an inch. I temporarily secured the template to the mounting block with screws in the slotted holes. Before we go any further, let's take a look at the anatomy of a dovetail joint. On the right, you see the board with the dovetails, or tails, and on the left, the darker board has pins and sockets to receive those dovetails. Dovetails are cut using a dovetail bit that's guided through the straight fingers of the template, whereas pins are created using a straight bit that's guided through the angled fingers of the template. It's time to make some test cuts. We'll start with the tails. Clamp a test board in the vise and clamp the jig to the test board with the straight fingers facing you. Take another test board of the same thickness and position it underneath the template and draw a line. This line represents the thickness of the adjoining board. You should set your router bit depth to this line. Now we guide the router slowly through the straight fingers and cut the tails. With the tails cut, we do a similar procedure for the pins. We mount the jig on the test board and draw a line that represents the thickness of the adjoining board. We'll set the router's straight bit depth to this line and cut the pins. Guide the router slowly through the angled fingers to create the sockets. With both test boards cut, we can check the fit of the dovetail. This fit is too tight. We need to make an adjustment to the template. We'll loosen the template and move it in the direction shown here to create a looser joint. The adjustment we need to make is minor, so I mark the current position of the template, loosen the screws, and then move it back a fraction of an inch. This adjustment we make only affects the pins, so all I need to do is recut the pins after making the adjustment and check the fit again. There, we got the fit we're looking for. Now notice how the pins stick a little bit proud of the adjoining surface. That's so we can sand them flush for a great looking joint. Now that we have a great fit, we lock the template in place by putting screws in the round holes. Using the jig is similar to the test procedure that we just went through, but we need to be more careful about how we position the jig on the workpiece. For the tails, we want to center the board between the straight fingers so that that gap on the right equals the gap on the left. We mark the thickness of the adjoining board and we set the router bit depth to that line. We guide the dovetail bit slowly through the straight fingers to create the tails. After removing the jig, it's nice to see crisp, clean tails. This will ensure a good joint. For the angled side of the jig, we position the workpiece so that its excess hangs outside of a set of fingers rather than centering it inside like we did on the straight fingers. We'll use a straight bit to cut the pins. We set the depth to the line that represents thickness of the adjoining board. Take it nice and slow and remove all the material inside of the angled fingers. Removing the jig reveals a clean cut set of pins that interlock perfectly with the adjoining tails. A nice push fit like that is a perfect fit. And again, we've left the pins and tails a little bit proud of the adjoining surface, and then we sand them flush later for a perfect dovetail joint. Now I'd like to show you a simple enhancement that you can do to your jig to make it easier to use and even more versatile. I've routed a dado down both sides of the mounting block and I installed T-track. This T-track allows me to use hold downs to secure the jig to the workpiece rather than clamps. Having the T-track on the mounting block also allows me to install stop blocks. I can use these stop blocks for positioning the jig for subsequent cuts. You can even use this jig on your router table. If you have a router plate that will accept a guide bushing like this one, you can use the same procedure as before. Set the bit height, clamp the jig to the board, and now turn it upside down and move the jig into the bit. The guide bushing will ride against the template and cut a perfect dovetail. Before I cut the pins, I mark the location of the tails. This will ensure that when I install the angled fingered side of the jig, that I cut the sockets in the right place. I set the bit height, and using the straight bit, I route away the material to create the socket. That's a nice, crisp, clean cut. It goes together nicely with the mating piece. This fit is just the way we like it. Nice and tight, and sand the tails down later.
Well, that concludes my demonstration of the through dovetail templates by MLCS Woodworking. I hope I've inspired you to try these templates for yourself. For just a small investment, you can get great looking dovetail joints that rival the results from jigs costing hundreds of dollars more. MLCS offers package pricing on the through dovetail templates that includes the template, carbide tip router bits, and a guide bushing. And as always, there's free shipping on all orders. So check out MLCS Woodworking on the web at www.mlcswoodworking.com or call toll-free at 1-800-533-9298.